Hello everyone, welcome back to another Transmission Tuesday. If you're in the Indigo Instinct Healing Matrix, it's Tuesday, which means it's time for another round of spiritual know-how. I am super excited about this particular week and this video that I have planned for you folks. I am interviewing a dear friend of mine and fellow healer named Auburn Lily, and she's behind Auburn Lily Healing Arts, and she works in Reiki and Reiki certification and does readings like I do, but she also works in animal communication. And being somebody who has always loved animals but has never really understood the depths of how people can really connect to them and really communicate with them, this interview has been super enlightening for me and super inspiring. So I hope you folks enjoy it. And I will leave some of Auburn's information in the description box below, especially if you're on YouTube. And it's just Auburn Lily for Instagram and for her website. But check her out. She is super rad and super amazing. And I am so stoked to have been able to sit down with her for this video. Enjoy. Okay. Hi, Auburn. It's so nice to have you, and it's so nice to have you in this space and hear a little bit about what your work is and what you do. I know you outside of the healing realm, but we both are so active in our own rights, and I'm just stoked to understand a little bit more about your side of the healing world because we operate in very different realms. So I just wanted to start with, can you tell me a little bit about Auburn Lily Healing Arts and a little bit about your journey as a healer and how you came into the healing world?
Sure. Yeah. So, well, in terms of, getting into the meat of like what we're going to be talking about, I've always been like fully obsessed with meeting as many different kinds of animals as I can. And I was also raised in a household that believed that being psychic was possible. So, my great grandmother on my father's side was seen as psychic, not just by herself, but by the other members of my family, by the people in her life. And so, as a kid, hearing that your parents believe that that's possible and your grandparents believe that that's possible, and giving you these like tangible examples of like it happening opened up this door at a really young age where I didn't have to like push past. I feel like a lot of people that I meet they're like raised in this space where they were not led to believe that it was possible. So there was like this threshold that has to be passed of possibility. And I was like brought into this world on the other side of that threshold. I don't think that you have to have a psychic lineage to like be in this realm at all. But it's like I feel like it's like a privilege, that I was like on the other side of that fence, on the other side of that threshold. And so that just kind of painted like this undercurrent of my growing up and my becoming who I am, in that this was like the base level was like, wow, this is a possibility and it's in my blood, right? So then I moved here to Asheville, North Carolina, and I just got like immediately drawn into the more spiritual space. I moved here when I was only 17. And then the next year, I met some friends who we were always just having these like in-depth discussions about consciousness and ascension and star seeds and everything juicy and psychic. And so that led me to crystal healing and quantum physics, therefore. And so I started getting really into this, just this idea that everything is energy. And that means that, because things are different and appear to be different, that means they have different frequency and different resonance. And so I started really getting into that. And yeah, so crystals led me to, or really it was dream work led me to crystals. And
Mm.
then crystals led me to more in-depth psychic work, right? Started doing like astral projection with like crystals like laid out all over our bodies, you know? And and then, you know, that just kind of like, it kind of gained momentum and gained momentum, led me to managing a metaphysical shop in downtown Asheville. And I found the deck, the Animal Spirit Oracle by Kim Krans. I'd had her tarot deck, but wasn't truly resonating with it. Like I would only pull it out maybe a few times a year, to be totally honest.
Mhm.
And then I got the Animal Spirit deck, and it was like I didn't even need the guidebook. You know, it was the first deck that I just like touched and understood. And I felt like it was because of this deep connection that I've always had with the animal kingdom, and just really being able to actually channel that into a reading. And so then from there, I started considering like, um, in the conversations that we were having, you know, relating everything back to the chakra system, relating everything back to integrative practice, I was like, wow, I could really take this work so much further if I was also doing energy work alongside these readings. Like, it's one thing to tell someone what's going on energetically, it's another to hold space for that transformation for them. And so that kind of was a journey in like the late 2018. I started reading and got my Reiki certification. So I started reading like professionally
Mhm.
and got a Reiki certification. And then yeah, the rest just kind of took took off from there. And then people were like, teach us. And I was like, okay. And then now somehow, by the grace of the universe itself, we're here.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and so I mean, really what I'm hearing at first was that it made a difference for you personally to have that door at least be unlocked, you know? Like you walked through it and you opened it, but it was at least unlocked with this sort of like cognitive support from your family, which is so, so cool. And
Yeah.
then your practice, like when you said, you know, you started teaching people Reiki, that just evolved totally organically, didn't it? Like you had no intention of doing that at first, and then it was the demand came to you and you just responded to the call.
Yeah, yeah. So it was really interesting. So I knew that I wanted to take like my Reiki education like all the way from the beginning, because that's just kind of my personality. Like I'm a Virgo rising, let's go, you know, kind of thing. So but I didn't really know. I didn't really know. And until I really started practicing Reiki, I couldn't even fully conceptualize teaching in the first place, you know. But during lockdown in the States here last year, in North Carolina, that was like mid-March was when that happened last year. And so I was just kind of like sitting at my kitchen table. And I actually just posted about this on Instagram the other day, because it's been a year since I launched Earth Healer for the first time. I was
Mhm.
just sitting at my kitchen table and I was like, maybe I should announce something on Earth Day. Like maybe I should do something surrounding Earth Day, you know? And I sat down and I was like, well, wouldn't it be cool if everybody kind of got together and like channeled Reiki to like a specific site on Earth that's either like polluted or like overpopulated or like on fire, like whatever it is? What if we channeled energy to that site on Earth, like through distance Reiki, right? And I'm like, huh, but that really limits like the amount of people who could come to this offering, because it's likely that if someone's not Reiki trained, they're going to think that they're not capable of doing that. And
Mhm.
then, you know, it was like, woof, teach people, and this is the curriculum. And that's how Earth Healer was born. And so it's like this Reiki lineage based, well, it's a lineage based in Reiki is the real way that I should say it, that's really focused on earth healing and healing for beings that are not just humans, and doing energy work in this way that's not just about starting a business and capitalizing upon energy work, but
Mhm.
is more rooted in like what is the change that we're trying to make here? What is the work that we're trying to do here? And if you can make some money along the way, that's great, because more people like us need to be wealthy. However, it's really a course that's like focused on this like deep, deep work that's very soulful and like earth centered. So yeah, I did not, and I didn't really have the intention of even teaching level 2.
Mhm.
And then I realized the necessity for it, and so I taught it. And then when they graduated level 2, they were like, "Where's the master program?" And I was like, "Okay, I guess I will make that." So it's just, yeah, just feeling like really guided by spirit and guided by like those around me, you
Mhm.
know? So like really grateful, really
Yeah,
grateful.
for sure. Yeah, that's incredible. And for those listening who might not know what Earth Healer is, who hasn't heard of it, it's that's your entry program, right? Like that's your Reiki, your like your first Reiki certification.
Yeah, yeah. So Earth Healer now has 3 levels. There's not one like that's just open enrollment all the time. I thought that I was going to do that. That's actually part of the reason that I got this office that I'm sitting in right now, is because I thought I was gonna like record this one cohort and then like sell it as an instant download. And then I got done with the course and Spirit was like, no,
Yeah.
you're not doing that. But yeah, so Earth Healer, it's a 3-level program. The whole thing is about 16 weeks. So 4 weeks for level 1, 4 weeks for level 2, and 8 weeks in the master level. And it just kind of takes you through like the classic Reiki attunement. So you can walk away, just call yourself a Reiki healer, you know, Reiki practitioner. But we do all of this in-depth earth work, talk a lot about herbs, a lot about the elements, a lot about you know, ways that we can use Reiki on animals, talk about channeling and animal communication, and really just lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Like my whole thing. It's
Yeah.
really like trying to pour my wisdom out of myself and into an offering, for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. Yeah, perfect. So, touching then on, you mentioned animal communication. I mean, that's the nature of this video that we're doing today. And for those like my audience, the people that know me, they know that I'm into sort of the higher realm stuff. I'm into the sort of like the new world, and like Pleiadian connectivity and a lot of the same stuff you are too, but animals aren't really my thing. So can you explain to me a little bit, and for people listening, what the heck is an animal communicator, and like what is it like how does it work, and like what are animals' roles in healing, and sort of like just unpack that like animal pie that I don't have a fork for.
Sure, totally. Well, I think one of the most concept shattering things that I can say is that we're all already animal communicators, right?
Mhm.
It's just we have a lot of like predisposition about what that looks like and what it means. So, like, first of all, I think everyone's an animal communicator because when your dog or cat is hungry, they're able to tell you and
Mm,
you're able to receive that information and take action on it. I think a lot of people don't push past this realm of like animals that we know and love and into any animal that I happen across, I understand, right? That takes a lot of practice. But animal communication is really just about holding space for the communication that's already coming through. So I don't know if you guys have seen the TikTok stream, like the TikTok feed of What About Bunny?
mm-mm,
Um, okay, so the reason I'm bringing this up is because I want to quote her mom, Bunny's mom. So Bunny is like a poodle mix. Maybe she's a straight up poodle. Anyway, she uses these buttons to talk. They like the mom records her voice saying a word on these little buttons, like a answer buzzer. So like Bunny can hit the button and say a word. Bunny has not only learned individual words, but she is now forming complete sentences and is able to use concepts of time. She has been using pronouns, like possessive pronouns, and names and feelings. And everyone says, "Oh, how did you teach your dog how to speak?" And she's really adamant. She says, "Your dog is already speaking. You're
mm.
just not understanding their language,
Mhm.
right? Like, I didn't give her the tools to speak, like to speak. I gave myself the tools to understand what she was
Right.
already saying, right?
Translation.
So yeah, so and so I do have um a quote from two quotes from Starhawk that I wanted to share,
Yeah.
just about like this, like really climbing out of this realm of like expectation about like how we can hold space for animals and plant life for that matter. The earth in general is speaking to us in every life form.
Mhm.
So she says, this one's more stilted and the next one is more colloquial. So buckle up. First, she says, and this is in The Earth Path. To become literate in nature's idiom, we must first challenge our ordinary perceptions and change our consciousness. We must, to some extent, withdraw from many of the underlying assumptions and preoccupations of our culture. And then she goes on to say, I've always talked to trees, but now when they talk back, I can assess whether what I'm hearing is truly their message or my own fantasies.
Mm.
So I feel like the true definition of an animal communicator is not just someone who can talk to an animal and get the animal to understand, but is really holding space for the response. And I think that it's really nice that she draws in this discretion. Not only do we have to step out of what we think they're saying, but we have to step out of illusion too and really open our minds. So I know that you haven't necessarily asked me this question, but I think one of the best ways to kind of allow this communication to come through is like starting with your pets
Mhm.
and using crystals. That's definitely how I got like even more into it, putting like crystals for communication, like Amazonite, aquamarine, even lapis, like opening up those higher centers of communication and channeling near their water bowls, not in their water, but near their water bowls, right?
Mhm.
Wearing it on your body, or maybe like putting it by the water bowls during the day and in your pillowcase at night, so that you're having this like exchange there. Because all of this to say, animals are always talking. They are always chattering. And a lot of times they want to talk to you. A lot of times they're actively communicating to you, whether or not they're making any sound whatsoever. And so yeah, the two ways to really climb out of that are like setting down your own expectations and setting down your own fantasies.
Yeah, that's super beautiful. Yeah, and I would have never it would have never occurred to me to use crystals in that like in that reciprocal way, like in that give and take of like I got shivers when you said, putting them near the water bowl and then putting them in your pillowcase at night because obviously that would forge the connection, right? And that allows for that intake of energy for the day and then that sort of deposit of energy at night when you're more receptive. So that is a beautiful tip that I am probably going to use in the future.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and the other thing, another tip, and I realize this is the one that I actually do more often, is like I'm consistently wearing like medicine pouches with like communicative crystals in them because
right.
I basically talk for a living. So is holding the crystals that you're going to wear that day and letting like your like rubbing them on your animals or letting them, like my cat Ivor like loves to like rub her face on my crystals. And so then I'm like carrying that communication with me. And
Mm.
sometimes I feel like I can even like feel when like if a UPS driver is at the house, I kind of like have this like twinge of communication from her. So I wanted to bring that to the table too, because that came through while you were like repeating my words back to me, kind of.
Yeah, super beautiful. That's wonderful. Um, I just have one more question, and that's, we often hear about the concept of having like a power animal or a spirit animal, like specifically for us. And I wanted to hear a little bit about just your opinion on that in general, but also if you have a specific type of animal that you identify with most and where that sort of like, how did you know? Where did that come from?
Yeah. So I'm kind of in this camp where I feel like our power animals like come in and out of our lives when we need them,
Mhm.
right? So it's like we might have this like overarching connection with feline energy, right? Like maybe we feel really drawn to even our domestic house cats or the lion or the tiger or the jaguar or whatever it is for our entire life. But
Mhm.
maybe there's a few years where you're really calling on crow medicine because you have a message that you're trying to crystallize and send out to the masses, you know. Maybe, you know, you've gone through some rough times and now the turtle is calling to you to like slow down and create this space of inner sanctuary. I
Mhm.
think that another part of like really opening up to this realm of animal communication is really noticing like what animals are abundant in your life, and not just because you chose them, but because they're choosing you. Like what animals are around your house, what animals are around your place of work, and what messages are they carrying for you. um, Now in terms of like my like overarching animals, I have a real connection to wolf energy, and I just consider that like canine energy through and through.
Mhm.
This will and you know, when it comes up in readings, I always go on this like long thing about how it's about more about like aligned leadership. Like the fully in line wolf is like not concerned whether or not like it is the alpha, right? It's like just doing its thing, leading, and it comes naturally. And it's because having lived with this wolf archetype for as long as I have, I've watched myself struggle when people don't want to do what I want them to do. And
Mm.
so this advice of like really withdrawing from that type of leadership and stepping into just being really firmly in your power. So that's one big like lesson and energy that I've worked with the wolf. And then because I was like thinking about this question, it's like, what do I say? But then I realized I have tattoos of the others. I just haven't gotten the wolf yet. So the snake, really about this, like to me, just really about this like ascension, right? And I have multiple pet snakes. So really working with that energy, that kundalini energy. The is like, is it a leopard? Is it a jaguar? It's the feline.
Yeah.
And this is also the archetype of the magician. This is very much about like really believing that everything that you need is coming for you and that you're freaking royalty. Like, have you ever met a cat that doesn't think they're like a queen or king? Because I haven't. So this is about that like sense of like regalness, you know, and like really stepping in this way. And in terms of how I knew about, so the wolf just kind of like was present for me. The snake was coming through in dreams for me, that when I was like considering like maybe I do want a pet snake, I had all of these dreams about snakes,
Mhm.
being bitten by them and not being scared, having them in my home, this and that. The leopard came to me, a snow leopard actually came to me in a journeying meditation with an energy worker that I adore, Marianne. And she, you know, she was just like calling in a guide for me
Mhm.
basically. And like we were like in this place that I used to go when I was little, like on the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland. And like coming down this hill was this like snow leopard. And I really saw this as like really reclaiming like this pristine power, like the snow leopard, like white with the splashes, like not shying away from the shadow, right? Like that purity with those, with that integrated shadow, really coming in for this ascension. And then the spider. And the
Mhm.
spider to me is really about like feeling fully supported, right? This energy of like this, there's a ever present web of support, and everywhere that we step we are supported, even if we feel off course, even if we feel like this shouldn't have happened or whatever it is, we feel like it's a mess, we're supported by this like unseen energy. And I knew about the spider because I was sitting on my porch one day at my old apartment. It was the first apartment that Josh and I had by ourselves without roommates. And I had like a little porch garden going, and like a container garden. And I was just sitting out there like writing or something. And I noticed that there was this little spider on a marigold plant. And I said, and he was so small and he was so cute. And I kind of like got down on his level and I said, "Oh, you're so cute." And he like looked at me like dead in the eyes. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, "Oh, hi." And he like jumped onto me. And it wasn't like attack. It was like, "Oh my God, like you're paying attention to me? Oh
Mm.
my God, you're communicating." Like it was like this beautiful excitement that he had. And then every time I would come in the house for like the next few days, he would get on me.
Oh,
Like,
that's
I would
awesome.
come inside and Josh would have to get the spider off of my body. This is a true story, like, cross my heart, this is a true story. And yeah, so that's really when I started working with spider energy, because I was like, "Okay, this is another animal, kinda like the snake, that a lot of people shy away from." They're like, "Oh, I hate spiders," or like, maybe you'll take them outside and not squish them, but, like, you don't really wanna hold them,
Mhm.
And it's like this fear that we've created about them is so unnecessary, because they're here witnessing us, supporting us, they're protecting us, they're keeping our ecosystem stable, and it's rather unseen. And so anyway, that was really long-winded, but you did ask me about animals after all.
No, I definitely wanted to know every part of it. And you read my mind about the snakes because I was going to ask about snakes anyway, and then you brought them up without even me prompting. So I'm super grateful for that. Um, I, I guess my last thing is sort of like, I know you sort of mentioned this before, but if someone were to show up and sort of ask, like, how can I, like, I feel like I want to connect with my cat more. I feel like I want to connect with my, I want to start with my pets, but I feel like I'm just not getting it, or I'm not hearing it. Like, what's some advice, or like, baseline tips for people who feel like they just can't get through that door?
Yeah. Well, I think honestly, the biggest thing that I notice is the difference between like me and my animals and some other people and their animals is that I verbally speak to my animals as if they are a human that understands every single word.
Right.
I use commands with my dogs in moments where I really, really need them to immediately listen. But outside of that, I entire sentences, paragraphs even. And I realized years and years ago that the reason that this works so well, this was like a divine download, because I've always done it my whole life. Even random animals, like I once almost convinced a squirrel to come onto my picnic blanket doing this, okay? Like having an entire conversation with them, and it's not necessarily because they speak English yet. It is because when we use the language that we are most comfortable with,
Yeah.
our brains align to the frequency of the words that we're saying. Our energy aligns to the frequency of the words that we're saying. We're like fully picturing it in our mind's eye when we are saying it. And because of that, the words, the energy, the mental picture, it all adds up into a frequency that animals are already more attuned to than us.
Right.
They are attuned to and understand subtle frequencies far more sensitively than we do. And so when we can fully like emanate the words that we are saying, they're able to pick it up more. And when we create that space, like when we say, you know, "I missed you today," or something like that. And then our cat like meows and like flips over onto her back and stretches out. She's saying, "I missed you today too,"
Hmm.
because and we're holding that space for each other in the way that you're fully conceptualizing. She's like, "Oh, we're on this level. I'm going to try to push from my end too." Right? And I'm not saying it's going to happen like the first time that you try. However, like the more and more that you work towards it, the more and more they will understand, and the more and more they will try to get you to understand too. And then the most miraculous thing happens, and they really start to understand English. They do not know English at first. And then a few years down the line, they actually have some sort of recognition. Like dogs already, they recognize treat, they recognize sit, they recognize their name. They have such vast memories
Hmm.
and such linguistic capability. And yeah, it's a true phenomenon. And so I always encourage it. Dog trainers do not agree with me, but I'm not a dog trainer, so
Yeah, dog trainer and animal communicator. I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where, like, like some dog trainers could be animal communicators, but not all animal communicators are dog trainers.
Well, and I think the main difference in like, if somebody had me over to their house to communicate with their dog because they were misbehaving, which is not really a service that I'm doing right now, but if they were to, let's say COVID isn't a thing, I'm actually going over to some random person's house. And they were like, how do I get this dog to stop misbehaving? I understand that with a dog trainer, their goal is like compliance. Their goal is obedience. And with an animal communicator, the goal is always just understanding from both sides. So the dog needs to, you need to understand, why is this dog misbehaving, right? He's chewing through your wall. Why the F is he doing that? You know what I mean? But then we have to understand, they have to, or rather, we have to understand why. And then they have to understand, like, you can't do that. Like, we really need you to stop. Whereas like dog trainer is like, nip it in the bud, obedience. It's like, I am so disinterested in having like dogs that are like completely obedient. I would rather have like the most intelligent, expressive dog on the planet that jumps on people when they come over.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a beautiful desire for your own animals as an animal communicator. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time and for explaining some of these sort of concepts that I definitely wouldn't be able to explain with such eloquency as you. I don't know if that's a word, but it sounds like a word.
Maybe. I don't know.
Right.
Elegance definitely is.
And I just wanted to ask, where can people find you other than like Auburn Lily Healing Arts? You have a website and Instagram.
So I'm Auburn Lily on basically everything. But now that I'm saying that out loud, it's like, how many things do I really have? I have Instagram. I have my website, auburnlily.com. And oh yeah, right now you can find the link to this. Really, right now it's only in my Instagram bio because I just announced it. But I am on waitlist for the next round of Earth Healer, which is going to be summer of this year. So if this feels like resonant and you just want to know more information, there's no like obligation to the wait list. However, you will save like a pretty penny once it does move into launch. And then on my website, there's an opportunity to like book with me, read more about me, and also buy some like pretty things, pretty crystals, ritual items, stuff like that.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and I will see you in the next realm.